see in the world, just so
The
that
change.
and all
Okay.
right. And we are live. So welcome back everybody to Titans Up today. It has been some time and we are very happy to be back. And we have Sterling Cooley here, who is a leading researcher and also entrepreneur in the fields of consciousness and really mind, body, spirit, you could call it, and consciousness connection, bringing that down to the level of science and technology. Welcome, Sterling.
Thanks, Jacob. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So that our audience can understand you, they may not have done as much research on you as I have.
Hmm.
What is the change that you want to see in the world?
Hmm. Um, I think that is a good question. I think in my younger years, I would have said that I would like to see changes in XYZ things. I think as I've grown up in my 30s, more than anything, I think what I would ideally like to see is that people recognize their own potential for experiencing gratitude and joy and happiness, and that can flourish inside of them no matter what their external circumstances are. And I think if people had the access to maybe the technology that could allow them to get there or whatever, where they could just experience it and just go, okay, that exists.
Hmm.
Um, I think most things could work themselves out.
Great. So some of the things we're going to talk about today are starting with vagus nerve stimulation and the ways people can do that, what the impacts and influences are of doing that, and how it could help to change people's lives. And then getting more into things like consciousness and the quantum reality. And then I personally have a ton of questions as well, based off of our first conversation, really around, human performance and how everyday people up to top performers can get the best out of themselves. So starting with vagus nerve stimulation, what is that all about?
Yeah, so I never really put much thought into the vagus nerve at all until a friend told me we were playing with an ultrasound system in Napa, one that I engineered. And he said, "Why don't we try stimulating the vagus nerve?" And so we stimulated with this ultrasound probe right in our ear. And I didn't notice much. He noticed it tickled a little bit. And the woman that was there looked like she had almost a full-blown orgasm. And I was like, what the fuck? That doesn't make any sense. What the hell? What the hell is this vagus nerve thing? So I didn't really do much with that information, to be honest. I was just like, well, that was weird. Moving on. I was like, it's lunchtime. And then a year later, my friend got me it's this product called the Leaf, actually, which big fans. The Leaf, I'm actually kind of taking it apart to look at the insides because we're doing an engineering project on it. But this gave me the insight to what's called HRV, heart rate variability, which is a big metric for understanding the vagus nerve and parasympathetic autonomic health XYZ. And I thought, okay, so I have this number HRV is like a 30 milliseconds, 50 milliseconds, 90 milliseconds. If it's at 90 milliseconds when you're breathing in and out, that's a good thing. That means like you're supposed to be feeling good. I was like, oh, cool. I also have this ultrasound system with me. So I had this ultrasound probe and I held it because I knew that Wim Hof breathing
Mhm.
and could increase your HRV as well. I had read that. And I knew where the vagus nerve was located now even more since that original in the ear. It's in your ear too. It's right on this contra spot here, but it runs massively down your neck. It's a big, huge branch on both sides. So I was like, okay, I got this big, hefty transducer and I plopped it right on my neck or like right about right here, looking right into the sternocleidomastoid muscle, right around the carotid and jugular vein. And I just placed this ultrasound on full bore, full intensity. Not anything to hurt yourself. It doesn't heat it up or anything like that. It's just the low intensity form. It's a specific ultrasound device. And I held it there and I started doing Wim Hof breathing. And I noticed I felt more dizzy faster than
Hmm.
I normally do. Like, you get that kind of like that buzzy, tingling, euphoric acetylcholine juice pouring out of your vagus nerve through your body. You get that tingling, cold sensation in your fingertips, and you're like, ooh, this is cool. And then I did the Valsalva squeeze, the one at the end of Wim Hof, which I think really makes it impactful. Is you do the big like big gulp in, and then you all that air in your chest. You squeeze your diaphragm like this, like you're bearing down almost like what you would do if you're lifting weights, like this kind of shit. And as I'm doing that on the third round, I'm doing that and I go, and it's still going, the ultrasound's going, and I swear to God, with my eyes wide open, my vision goes full white. And I'm
Mm.
in this room that's a grid line room with like right lines. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then it goes, and I'm shot into what looks like Central Park in New York City. Perfectly vivid. Green grass, skyscrapers, the sun, people like women pushing their carriages, all this kind of. I'm like, and I'm not really in this state of being able to understand what the fuck I'm seeing, but I'm just like, there's some part of my mind that's there going, observing it, not freaking out, obviously. But then this lasted for what seemed like 15 minutes. On the time scale of what I was recording, it was like 45 seconds, but it felt like 15 minutes.
Mm.
I was like, and then my it felt like my I'm just gonna describe it as my consciousness going sucked back in my body, and I'm laying on the ground going, what the fuck? Where am I? Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this podcast, but I
Oh,
might swear. It was that intense. And I was like, where am I? And I was literally back in my office, laying on the floor, holding this ultrasound transducer just a few inches away from my neck because it just naturally kind of slumped down. And I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck, dude? Okay. So that was when I knew there's something about this vagus nerve thing that needs to be looked into a little bit more. And actually at that time I was just focusing on programming and machine learning and doing, I was doing work as a contractor, and I was like, okay,
that was a big moment of
full
change.
in on vagus nerve stuff. So that's that started a long trajectory, but that was in 2017.
Mm.
And so even more recently, I've had another similarly intense um, realization about microtubules, which maybe we'll get to, maybe not. But I seem to have a lot of these accidental moments where I'm like, holy shit, there's something deeper to reality, I think, or consciousness than what meets the eye. So I'm
Right.
really fortunate to be able to be literally a pioneer in that space, I think. So
100%. So let's
yeah.
start to break down more of the vagus nerve, maybe that experience for people who are new and maybe don't even know what Wim Hof breathing is. So it's
Mm,
one thing, of course, when you and I talked that we both have familiarity with that. And
yeah.
I've done it pretty much every day for the past 3 months and done it on and off. Other than that, tried things like holotropic breathing, which
Mm,
I'm sure you're familiar with that, where they
mhm.
say, it's more extended. It's a more of a, let's say it's a Wim Hof, but your round is an hour long, where you're just
Right.
continuously breathing and breathing and breathing to the
Yeah.
point where you're supposed to have, some sort of psychedelic experience and trigger that the potentially close to what you were saying. So with what you experienced, is it safe to say that through that stimulation of the vagus nerve with the ultrasound, you were able to activate that to a higher degree as if you had done something more intense, like a holotropic breathing session or something along those lines? And what was the mechanism in which that occurred?
Yeah. I had done Wim Hof breathing for probably 18 months straight prior to that, if not a little bit longer.
Hmm.
So I had a deep, deep experience. This is not the first time I did Wim Hof. And I had gotten up there in Wim Hof to being able to hold my breath for 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So this was not a Wim Hof exclusive weird thing. And I did run a short study afterwards, immediately afterwards with 20 people. And I was like, you're going to try the same ultrasound. You're going to do the same thing. Are you going to get the same shit? And they all had these really profound, transcendental, transformative experiences that have completely changed their life for the better. So there's something more than just the breathing part. it was definitely a vagus nerve specific response because I've validated that further with ultrasound and targeting just the vagus nerve with like focused beams, and it puts you into this like instant enlightenment state. It's
Huh.
really wild. So yeah, the vagus nerve is a crazy nerve. It's very powerful. I have some theories about what the vagus nerve is, and those are even wilder. I have those on my website now, but um I don't know. Honestly, you ask me the next question because I can go in any direction you want.
Right. Well, we're
But
going to go deeper on that one because I think there's so much there that people could be enlightened by, similar
yeah,
to that experience that you had, and then perhaps that'll lead them down a good path in life, or a better path,
hopefully.
right? Or some positive change. So
Yeah.
you're mentioning that, like, what I've understood about the vagus nerve, and I have not researched it, but just from Wim Hof, is that it's somewhere here, right? And it's sort of where our emotional center is, and that it connects. Are you saying that it connects all over?
All through the entire body,
So it's
everywhere.
rooted into our nervous system.
It's deeply embedded into our brain and our nervous system and our consciousness and everything. Yeah. It like locks right in there. Like there's a scene, I wish I could play a scene. It's from Conan the Barbarian. And he meets this woman who's like a shamaness or something like that. And she's like, something about the snakes. And he's like, "Oh, the snakes. Two snakes meeting, but they're the same snake. A standard." And he's like talking about this. And I'm like, holy shit, the vagus nerve looks like that. It's two branching snake looking things going through two holes in the brain, but meeting as one right in the brain stem. I mean, there's a lot of symbology that if you know media, you're like, holy shit, people have been talking about the vagus nerve for a very long time. So there's a lot of lore about it, even. One of my most popular Medium articles is called The Ancient Secrets of the Vagus Nerve. It's got like maybe a million impressions or something like that. It's very popular for like anything esoteric vagus nerve. I explored that, published that in 2019. So I've been at this for a long time, very deep in the knowledge. And there's always these tales of these two twin dragons coming through two different holes, meeting their heads, fighting over a dragon ball, which could be like the pineal gland or something like that, like the seat of consciousness. There's definitely something to this stuff. So, um, but yeah, I mean, I think in terms of what I took from that experience in 2017 the most was the second time I did it. Because the first time I did it, I was like, what the actual F just happened?
Hmm.
And then I thought, there's no way this was real. This is just a fluke. I don't believe it. Just something with my brain cocktail that day. I don't know. I wasn't doing any drugs, completely sober, 100%. Don't do drugs. But I did it again the second day. I first thought I almost killed myself. It felt like a near death experience, honestly, like an out of body death experience. So I did it the second day. And at first I was like, I'm never going to tell anybody this ever. This is going to die with me. This is so embarrassing. What did I do? It was so irresponsible to do something like that. Combining ultrasound and Wim Hof, what the fuck, right? Who would do something stupid like that? But I did it a second day. And similar thing happened. I shot into the same white room. I did it exactly the same way. Same white room, but I didn't go any further than that. I blacked out, which means that I did go somewhere, but I wasn't able to bring it back. But as I was floating back, having that same sucking back into my conscious state, being in my room again, I heard what sounded like the voice of Tony Robbins telling me, you can be doing so much more with your life. You have so much more potential. And it just like hit me. And I was like, oh my God. Whoa. So it was really, really wild. And so, yeah, I mean, it certainly was the case at that time too, is that I definitely wasn't living up to my full potential. And so this was a wake up call, but it was like, I don't know, it was weird. It was like I was connecting it, my guess is that the body has its own kind of center of consciousness, maybe through the vagus nerve. I think the vagus nerve actually is a conscious, maybe separate entity from our mind potentially.
Hmm.
that it has its own like conscious centers. And when we connect the two, it wants to tell us things. But in our society, we're so disconnected that the truth of our potential is not accessible. But you have to do certain things to kind of elicit that connection again. And ultrasound being a way to stimulate microtubules and neurons very effectively, you're able to harmonize. It's like a walkie-talkie. It's like a repairing of the fiber optic cable that connects your brain, your prefrontal cortex, your higher intuitive centers to the rest of your body. That's my guess. Was it's not like, it wasn't there wasn't a radio station with Tony Robbins playing. It was just something I had already heard that I wanted to tell myself, but I was probably disconnecting because I didn't want to face the potential pain of expanding to what I really am innately meant to be doing, which is, I mean, I still don't know what that is exactly, but I think I'm figuring those things out as I go. And I'm very actually I'm quite excited about what I'm doing all these days. It's pretty incredible. Yeah.
Exactly. So to go deeper on that and to bring up one of the points, some might think that the things that you're saying are
Mm.
diametrically opposed, right? This knowledge that comes from a place that we have access to,
Mm.
which if you look at geniuses over time, they use their subconscious mind. Many breakthroughs have come from dreams and these experiences, which are alternate
Yeah.
states of consciousness. And in fact, it's like a lot of our technology has emerged from those things, which I'm saying are diametrically opposed. This sort of otherworldly knowledge, and then we somehow create things that are valuable in our real world. And with you saying about your purpose and the things that you're working towards and these moments of or epiphanies, right? These breakthroughs that have come. What would you say brings those breakthroughs, or why do you believe that you have found interest in so many of these subjects to the point where you're able to hit breakthroughs? And how could someone apply that or start to find that path for their lives?
Yeah, I think that's actually where I really have to give incredible credit to Orko and the work of like Stuart Hamroff, especially. Um, and I mean, these are concepts that date back through probably all of human history, I think, which
Exactly.
is the
Some of the
idea.
stories that you're saying, right? Some of the
Yeah.
twin dragons even
Yeah.
predate our medical complex understanding of these systems in our body.
There's definitely something at play there for sure. I mean, there's definitely something going on there. Um, what so the con okay. So what I believe and what I think is what I've recognized is probably true in my life is that there is a sense of guidedness and that there is some sense of source energy connection of some way. I'm saying this as someone who's like, I'm not raised in a hippy dippy cult
Exactly.
religion. I wasn't raised in a Catholic, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Jewish, any kind of tradition. My mom was just like, don't give a shit.
Figure it out.
Figure it out yourself. So I don't know, people like, you're talking about the Vedic thing. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that is. I'm just trying to figure it out myself. Okay. We're on the same journey. Okay. Right. So there's does seem to be some kind of connection to something bigger, deeper. My best guess from what I've heard, from what I've studied, is that if you look into OR, which is the concept of orchestrated objective reduction, which is this concept of that your microtubules are these quantum spinning forests, especially they exist heavily in your prefrontal cortex and your pyramidal neurons. They also exist in your vagus nerve as well, in big clusters, like big secure clusters. Like if you were an alien species designing a supercomputer quantum computer thing, you would design it to look exactly like how microtubules look like in the vagus nerve and in pyramidal neurons. I'm just saying it's like exactly what that would look like. But according to if you study like Edison, Thomas Edison, and other greats, I'm a big fan of Thomas Edison as far as an inventor and just a thinker, and again, just people in history who have created things. I think we're in this zone of the world where we need to create, we need to build. We have to build. We can't just sit on our ass and take no action and look at the world and think, oh me, oh my, it's the sky's falling. Doesn't fucking matter. Even if the sky is falling, you gotta get out there and build. So for people who are like engineers, business owners, you gotta get out there and you just gotta make shit happen. You 100% do. So I have that unique skill where I've tapped into that action bias where I'm able to just do things, right? It's on that meme. It's the curve of you just do things, right? And but in the doing of things, there's clearly been a guiding force in the directionality of where I've been building. And I'm like, oh my God, if I'm onto something here, this could be amazing.
Hmm.
And so I think what that is that comes from probably tuning your energy, your metabolism, your frequency through your body, through your brain, and putting yourself into a non-computational state of mind. Most people who think they have problems, who are thinking about the problem, they're like, "Oh, I gotta think really hard about the problem." Usually, they're wasting time trying to think through the problem. Most times, what I found is if I just analyze the biggest problems from a certain state, the solution is right there in front of me all the time. And I'm like, oh, there you go. And so if you continually access that, it's quite exciting and quite fun and quite entertaining. I can assure you it's one of the most exhilarating things ever because you can see not only like problems that you're generating, but problems that other people are generating. And like you can whip up a solution like just instantaneously without really even thinking of it. And it's usually right. I mean, for all practical purposes, you're like, okay, this is a working solution. Um, and so you want to create, of course, a container where that solution orientation is fostered, which I think in building and programming and engineering, where you're creating things, is you can really develop those as like little engines of insight, sort of kind of utilizing and tapping into these concepts, which is like what an invention studio kind of does, like people who create, people who are builders, authors, these kinds of things, speakers. I think they're doing that natively. Um, the when to kind of cut to the chase, I do have a practice that I do every day. It's called ultra priming. And I think the main thing is it does involve breathing. It involves kind of putting yourself into a an altered state of mind through breath. Through the first part of it, if you know it, is like that. That's what it looks like. And it's got the oneness
For anybody who's watching this,
Om.
your
Hmm.
mic actually, when you do that, you can't hear it. So just
Oh,
explain in the nose, out the
it's the
mouth,
nose. Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
nose,
In the
out the
nose,
mouth.
out the nose.
I don't know if you can you hear me if I do that?
No.
See, so yeah, both our
For a
mics.
second, it can. Yeah. 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 It's so good. Good point. So yeah, it's in the nose, out the nose, like that.
Okay,
Um,
nose out
and
the
so
nose.
you do that, but then there's gratitude. There's a heart-centered portion of it, and I think if you put yourself into a state of gratitude, that this isn't just some religious woo-woo stuff.
Right, it's actually that your brain waves and your heart waves can become aligned. There's when you do that.
Yes. And that there's more intuition in your heart, and the universe connects through the heart more than it does through the mind. But you do obviously need to convert like feelings into tangible things,
Mm,
I believe, right?
yeah,
So you need both. You can't just be centered in the heart. You can't just be centered in the brain. You need to connect the two. And gratitude is the way to do it. And gratitude, it sounds woo-woo, like I'm trying to push a religion. I'm like, I'm like talking to you as a hardcore industrialist. I'm like, unleash the levers of creation. Okay. We need AI. We need like brain implants. Like I'm like, we need
same.
Dyson spheres around the sun. We need to be traveling to Jupiter. Okay. We need colonies on Mars immediately. Okay. All I'm saying is that there's clearly an untapped potential in the mind by doing this ultra priming practice. I've
Exactly.
been doing it for years. If you look at my output as an author, as a writer, as a speaker, it doesn't make any sense. It
Yeah,
really doesn't.
It's like you're
Yeah.
sacrificing the need for there to be a way to find the best way, right? So one might think, okay, so if we want to do all those things, you need
Mm.
to be rigorous and only do things that are by the book, mainstream. You can't go outside of it. There's no emotions. It's just thought, computation, power, output. But but the truth is, and kind of what your journey has evidenced, and many other journeys have evidenced as well, is that beyond that computational layer of the brain, there is an emotional center that is
Mm.
connected to our bodies, which also drives insight and intellect that's far
Yeah.
beyond what can be achieved from one or the other.
Exactly, exactly. And I think the vagus nerve is a huge untapped reserve of microtubules. And microtubules, we do know, are quantum computational units. They can
I have
solve
a video of
problems
the
instantly.
microtubule here I can show. There.
Yeah, please.
This is the one I think. Did you see this on Twitter?
I did, yeah.
So yeah, this is apparently. I'm sure you could actually explain this better than I could to some of the viewers here.
I mean, honestly, okay, you're catching me off guard with this. I saw this and I'm like, this this is an entertaining animation.
Right.
It's doesn't necessarily say a whole bunch of stuff, to be honest with
Hmm.
you. I don't convey a lot of meaning from this. It's cool. It needs some music too. It's like
Uh,
so anyway, but yeah, I think
let's
we
help
got.
people understand the structure of it behind the animation.
Yeah, well, I mean,
That's all.
that's an animation that's not exactly representative of a microtubule or anything like that, but it's microtubules are much more complex symphonic structures that build themselves, and they have protofilaments that stack, and they look like IKEA building blocks, and they just spontaneously emerge out of a soup of amino acids and these kinds of things. It's pretty wild. But so yeah, what for you? I'm just curious. What was your thinking on that video?
Well,
What was
so
going through
from
your
our
head there?
conversation and
Yeah,
just reading some of the ORC OR and other things like that, you
yeah.
mentioned how a microtubule knows how to move. It knows what to do,
Mm,
really, and it's an example of intelligence where we don't think intelligence should exist. But then, of course,
mm,
seemingly all cell life is, right? And in some sense, it has some functionality. It seems to be going towards some direction or purpose. But
yeah,
it seemed that, if you're able to visualize something and understand it, if that was an accurate representation, right? It's just a fancy thing on Twitter that looks cool, then
yeah.
it could help people to understand from those roots
Mm.
what what the mechanisms, the functions, and the high from the lower structure to the higher structure, right? If you can see something first, it's easier to perhaps comprehend and see function in it.
Yeah, I mean, you should show them the video that I've just put up, which is going viral right now, which is
Sure. I'll pull it up.
let's see. It's just called, yeah, imagine working in biology, seeing the entire cell controlled by these green lines and thinking, yeah, those aren't very important. I'm sorry, but literally one what? It's got 600,000 impressions, and I
Go
posted
ahead
it
and link it to me.
yesterday.
Go ahead and drop it here in the chat, and I'll pull it up. Just
Yeah,
currently
absolutely. Here we go.
your Twitter.
Um, I think actual, there we go. Boom. Okay, cool. It's in the chat. Yeah, so share that video. I mean, that's a real recording of actual microtubules. And that's in just a single cell,
Got it.
right? So yeah, that I think that is way more demonstrative of what we're talking about. I mean, yeah, I think that funny wiggling worm is cool, but it's yeah,
Sweet. Let me pull this one up.
cool.
All right, here we are.
There it is. Yeah,
Is
so
there
just play
sound?
that.
No sound.
No sound, no sound, no sound intention. So this is a recording of green stained microtubules. They're undulating throughout the entire cell. They drive the cell. They move the cell. Okay. They're the thinking unit behind the cell. If you ask a kind of a modern day biologist, like what do you think about microtubules? They're like, oh, they're just like dumb, like railroad tracks. They just shuttle stuff around. No biggie. No big deal. No, they separate the cells and everything. I mean, they do everything in the cell. They might have come first before DNA. Actually, it's very likely that microtubules probably came first before any of that. So, what is the thing driving these microtubules? And if you ask that question, people are like, oh, I'm like, why are you having that reaction? I'm just asking, what the hell are these microtubules? And people are like, think I'm trying to push some religious thing. I'm not. I'm
Gotta ask
genuinely
questions.
curious.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Whenever it's something like that where people are sensitive or have these dismissive behaviors, it doesn't really make sense. It's sort of similar to, if you want to go create something in an industry or innovate, and everyone's like, well, no, don't do that. And you're like, okay, well, it's
Fuck
probably
that.
we should probably look into
Literally
that.
fuck that. Yeah, I'm curious. I think if we understood these microtubules, I mean, we would probably understand like better to understand how to fight disease, viruses, aging, neurodegeneration. These are involved in every single process in life. And if you ask a fucking biologist, they're like, oh, those green things? Nah, nah, no, don't, no, nothing going on there. It's like the Liam Neeson meme or the meme where he's like, there's an explosion behind him. He's like, nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see here. I'm like, why is he doing that? Ask yourself, why is there a pervasive feeling amongst some researchers that there's an intentional dismissiveness around microtubules specifically, which there factually is. If you work in academia and you talk about microtubules, just look at the reaction you get from people who are the embedded academic elite class.
Hmm.
There's 100% an agenda to not recognize what is going on. And it would be interesting to understand why, and one, from a philosophical standpoint, just why psychologically, why do they feel so compelled to deny that microtubules are doing anything interesting? And they're like, well, they are, maybe they are, but they're not quantum. And it's like, we just found evidence that they are actually quantum. They exist in your brain. They're these things are insane. I just encourage everybody to just like dive into looking into these. You will find some answers about potentially reality itself that are shocking and like uplifting on a level that you can't even, it's very difficult for people to comprehend what this could actually mean.
So
And so I'm on Twitter talking about that every day,
what
basically.
is the distinction between quantum and not quantum? What would make something quantum and not quantum?
Mm. So, okay, so you have classical physics. So you have classical mechanics, which is like modeling gravity and like large macro scale planet kind of wide forces, physics there. But then you have quantum mechanics. And if you zoom in really, really close, you're like, oh, the atom in a like the electrons in an atom, when you try to measure them, they jump away. They're not there. They're statistically there. There's a field of probabilities. But when I look at my pencil, it's here. This is my stylus. It's here. But if you zoom in on a quantum scale, the further you look at it and observe it, the more it's not there. So there's something going on. There's a difference between large scale classical physics and quantum mechanics. And there's no unifying theory that ties the two together. Roger Penrose, who's a Nobel Prize winning physicist, if you want to get into all kinds of degrees and smarty pants stuff, okay? Roger Penrose is like worked with Stephen Hawking on black holes, Nobel Prize winner, very distinguished, internationally recognized as a smart guy. Wrote a book in 1989 called The Emperor's New Mind, which said basically that there has to be something that does unify classic and quantum mechanics. And he proposed there's probably a scale at which there's a flickering between classical and quantum mechanics back and forth. There's some little portal that exists somewhere in our physical world that's interfacing the two. Because otherwise, you wouldn't be able to look at something that's quantum mechanical and see a classical thing. There has to be something going on. And all Roger Penrose said is there's likely a mechanism in the human brain because when we observe things with our eyes, it seems to collapse the quantum waveform into one or the other. That's called the objective reduction. that Penrose created.
Mhm.
And so he was like, there probably is something there, but I don't know what that is. And then Stuart Hameroff, who had already published a book in 1987 called Ultimate Computing, which is a full, like, multi-page resource on microtubules. He's like, as an anesthesiologist working on cancer, was like just looking at that same kind of video under a real microscope as a real scientist, was like, these microtubules are doing something that is not explained in the textbooks. There's something really weird going on. And everybody's like, shut the fuck up, Stuart. Shut up, Stuart. Shut the fuck up. There's nothing going on here. Who gives a shit? Even if there were, who cares? And then Stuart read Penrose's book about the quantum scale where this would be happening. And Stuart was like, holy shit, those benzene rings that make up the structures very highly formed within, like kind of in the thing behind me, this like kind of hexagon 6 carbon ring thing, was the exact scale where this would be happening in microtubules. So they paired up in 1991, they communicated, and then that was born Orca. So basically, the answer as it is right now is consciousness itself is that thin boundary line that connects classical and quantum. And you and I are in it right now. We are in our heads, in our bodies, in our minds, the merger, the veil that connects classical reality to quantum physics. And that you and I are the ones doing the thing. Okay. It's a pretty big deal.
Mm.
Okay. You have it. I have it. Everybody watching it has it. An AI computer does not have it. And so we are existing on that thin veil of this. And some people have said throughout history, did you know that rather than looking up at the classical, there's a hard pen that with your own mind's eye, you could actually look into the quantum. And what do you find there? Probably something akin to value states, some kind of geometric quantum foam. That's what Penrose is saying. And then we look at like Platonic ideals, which would say that there's some symmetry, there's mathematics going on down there. That's why certain mathematicians, some of the greatest mathematicians, will literally claim they wake up one morning and an entire formula is sitting in their head and they write it down. Ramanujan, an Indian mathematician who's still to this day heralded as like, how the fuck did he do that? Would claim that in private and in writing, and people have validated this, that he would pray to a god, to his goddess, he's Indian, and that she would gift him on the tip of his tongue the formulas to write every day. So I'm like, okay, can we use something like that? Can we build shit? I mean, I want to do engineering. I want to do programming. I want to do art. There's something there. So I'm personally trying to tap into this and understand what these forces are actually. And so, yeah, I mean, that's why all this is important. I don't know. I'm trying to help people that are out there build Dyson spheres and make the planet fucking amazing to live on. Because we have a real base reality. It's an objective reality. There's no multiple worlds. You're not like one branch of one reality of yourself. No, it's one objective, flat, moving forward in time. Time is in consciousness, sense of reality. And if you die, you're dead. So don't die. And we're here. Okay. So let's do something. Let's make. And also I have a lot of friends on Twitter who are like, smoke DMT because they want to go and see. And I think what they're seeing with drugs and psychedelics is they are seeing into that quantum indeterminacy. They are. Just like Ramanujan was as well. Any drug that you take is orienting your microtubule vision, your view into the quantum foam. That's why you see all that weird shit. And every kind of modulation on the molecular scale to change it gives you a slightly different perspective on it, but it's all the same shit. So I'm like, okay, so the criteria then for doing drugs should be not not like, oh, I saw cool, pretty fractal pictures. Oh, no, it should be, okay, well, what are you going to engineer today?
Mm.
Draw it, write it, capture it. I don't give a fuck if you saw some pretty fucking colors or a weird spooky demon with hair like vestigials on his head. I don't care. I don't actually fucking care. It's not going to save me. It's not going to save you. Okay. The planet's on the verge of fucking death. We're on the verge of atomic annihilation. And you're
Mm.
sitting on your ass smoking drugs going, oh, pretty colors. Oh, they did that in the 60s. Okay. Fuck off. So there's something in there and we should go and get it. That's that's my obsession right now. And that will probably be my obsession for quite a long time because
Mm.
I'm getting some evidence that this is actually a factor. Like I look at Elon Musk as well, and people are like, how does he do it? And I'm like, well, I read stories that he would go into a trance-like state as a kid and visualize things like he described it as two graphical processors in his brain. And he would like literally go and design shit like instantaneously in his head that would work in the real world, like as an engineer. I'm like,
Mm.
great, let's formalize this. I know it's woo-woo, but I don't give a shit.
But that's the thing. It's like if it's the most productive methodology that exists and it's a
Then
theme
let's
that
do it.
pervaded numerous geniuses, like Tesla was the same way.
Yeah,
Able to,
Tesla did the same shit.
yeah.
Tesla, Edison, probably Steve Jobs even. Steve Jobs would do these same kinds of things. Steve Jobs, when he was living in Portland, would go to Indian spiritual dances and just move his body into like full energy and then just like create like just instantaneous like this. And so, like, ultra priming, for instance, is a practice where you're literally told to get the fuck up out of your seat and go, like, now I am the voice. Yeah. Yes. Like, you build energy. Creation doesn't come from this, like, well, today. I mean, and no offense to that, right? But my bias is towards leadership and action in creation, building things, energy. Nothing wrong with it, right? And everybody at their stage in their life is going to have that amount of energy to do it. People in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, even. I mean, now we might be able to make people live forever. Imagine these engines of innovation spawned throughout the entire planet at all times. That this would be incredible. And I think that we are actually getting formalizations around these systems. Some of them come through ultrasound, for instance. Like I have friends who are designing ultrasound systems that are used by some of the biggest cryptocurrency exchanges in the world. And they put these big transducers on the back of their head and they go right to their center of consciousness. And guess what they're doing? They're turning off their default mode network. They're turning off that part of the brain that's like, oh, what's going on? Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
know the trash. Oh God, oh, my Netflix subscription. Like that part of your brain turns that shit off, and you're just like, oh, a new formula for XYZ thing. Holy shit. These companies in Silicon Valley are using this shit already. And I got to go into Silicon Valley and work on some of this stuff. I actually was in that lab and saw that firsthand. I've used it myself because of ultrasound, strictly because of ultrasound. My work with ultrasound got me access. That's it. Right. And just because I think I'm a pretty interesting guy too. So people just generally are like, they call me up like, do you want to work on something? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll fly down to California. That sounds good. So I just got access to things that most people don't get access to. And I think we're called in this time in history to build. Otherwise, we are going to die,
Mm.
literally. So yeah, that's where the intensity comes from.
Fighting
100%.
our own human counterparts, which are pulling us down, right?
Which I mean, again,
Risks and
I agree. I agree. I mean, it's not honestly for me, I just don't really have the bandwidth to pay attention to that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Truly. It's out there, but there's nothing stopping someone from opening up a computer terminal and programming code to get better at it, right? I do feel like all these, like when I was a kid, I used to play video games on a graphics card. on a big ATI Radeon 5970 graphics card when I was a kid. Counter-Strike Source, Homeworld, you know, pew, 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 pew. Turns out that those GPUs, by my investment in these multiplayer arenas, contributed to the creation of like massive companies like NVIDIA, which are now the backbone of AI, which is now the backbone of like most of the world. So I didn't know it, but when I was a little kid playing like Total War Rome or something like that with my friends, multiplayer LAN parties as a kid, so much fun. We always said when we're older, we'll probably do LAN parties again just for fun. I'm really excited about that someday soon. But those graphics cards ended up being used for mining cryptocurrency and then also for training AI. So I think everybody right now, I think we're all called to use your skills, whatever skills you have. You don't have to do what I do. My work is extremely unique, and not everybody can do the kind of stuff that I do, but everybody has something that they need to tap into. And I'm just telling you, we're not going to get there by arguing back and forth with people about should we have technology? Should
Mm.
we not have technology? Ooh. Should we go live in the woods? Should we forage mushrooms? No, we shouldn't. And I'm not going to. That's not happening anymore, okay? We're past that point. Okay? So end of discussion. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on that. I that's that's the philosophical, I guess, thing that people can engage in. But I'm like, don't let that be your main focus. Your main focus needs to be on building. Building regardless, even if that's you, just you and your own computer or a book or something, you build. If you're hearing my voice, build something. Put your skills down on paper. Do something. Get good. And
Mhm.
some of the people listening will be like, holy shit, I can do that. I'm not living up to my full potential. And yeah, you probably aren't. I don't feel like, I mean, I actually do kind of feel like I am now, but and I'm really, it's fucking fun. It's so much fun. Do it. Do it. Just go fucking do shit. Build stuff. Anyway, but yeah, that's kind of the call that I'm feeling for
That
everybody.
call is you're just it fuels your passion, to unlock
Absolutely.
yourself and to help others unlock themselves. So you
Yeah.
mentioned people need to find that, whatever that is, something that's special for them. And you mentioned ultra priming. How about we go
Mm.
deeper into that and really unpack what that could do for somebody?
Yeah. Well, there's this one. So what I think the thing with ultra priming is it's about a 20-minute video that you do. Um, you put yourself into gratitude. Gratitude connects your mind with your heart. And I think that if there's any truth to this idea of a simulation, that the Big Bang started a cycle of multiple Big Bangs. That's a Penrosian kind of theory. That at the deep space-time geometry is that there's little grooves carved into it for people. Not for one person. I'm not saying like I have a predestined path. I'm kind of like I'm physically my material body is acting as a body to simulate different things to write back to the simulation.
Hmm.
And that includes things like ethics and beauty and symmetry and mathematics. Like we are the agents of upgrade for the quantum foam. The quantum foam needs us in order to actually put some of these ideas to the test. That's it. Like there's how a piece of technology looked wasn't predetermined. Like if you look at how Russians in the 1950s designed rockets versus how Americans designed them, they looked different. There wasn't any predetermined way, but there was a thing happening, and one won and one didn't win. And here we are. This process just continues. But I believe that through practices like even like which sounds weird, prayer is actually our way of downloading back into the quantum foam, sort of the day's events. And that's the daily purpose is there's just like a system of collection, writing as a human entity. And that's anything. That could be whatever. That means if you're an artist, if you do with the five things, beauty, symmetry, aesthetics, mathematics, and ethics, those are the five directions to implant to. So what ultra priming does is it only presents certain coordinates of where those particular things are, things in line with those. You're going to see things that represent mathematical symmetry, things that represent aesthetics, these kinds of concepts. So you're priming your visual field to where to write to. And then you do this practice midway through where it's just going, okay, I want you to see a white light, a gold light, a blue light, any light color you choose, coming down from the sky and penetrating your skull, going down through your head, your chest, your arms, your stomach, your back, your legs, your calves, your feet, into the earth, wrapping around the core of the earth. I usually do it 3 times, by the way. I do 1, 2, 3 around the core, and then I bring it back up and I'm exhaling at the same time. So like that. And it's this. And if you do that 2 or 3 times, just these like that, you start feeling high. You start feeling a euphoric feeling. And this would be explained by the kind of that quantum pleasure principle, which is that anytime you are writing to the quantum foam, you should get a reward back, which is euphoria.
Interesting.
It's a writing and reading system, right? And so try ultra priming and it'll make a lot of sense what I'm talking about. Another part of it is the blessing, which is basically just like, once you feel that kind of that energy in your body, is to then center that around your heart. And then and it's sending that energy out into the world to other people, friends, family, people you know, people you don't know, colleagues, business partners, strangers, everybody. And it uses this visualization, which is this kind of spreading like a network effect, hitting nodes. It's a fucking cool animation, man. It's very cool. And so I usually do it on VR. So my recommended place to do it is in a VR headset. So you can certainly watch it on a little dinky phone. That's fine. It's still the same thing, but I do it in a big ass VR headset. And so if you have Apple Vision Pro, you can watch it there. Um, for some of my friends, we make sure that they get access to this headset, which is a lot lighter and doesn't cost $3,000. It's not that important, but it's
Mm.
a high quality enterprise 4K headset. But it looks fucking incredible. If you have the raw, like the real raw, because I'm a film editor and I have a film background, so I actually understand how film and media and sound work. So it actually has a lot of expertise that went into this. There's a lot of sophistication in the methodology of ultra priming. That's not a mistake or an accident. It's not accidentally really good. It's good intentionally. And God, I mean, you just feel like holy shit. And then you put yourself into a state of gratitude. And then if it's true, if Orca War is true, what that would mean is that through your conscious intentionality, is that you are literally sending energy through the veil of consciousness from classical through consciousness into the quantum indeterminacy, into that kind of geometric interlocking field that's kind of self-fractally repeating with different quadrants that you can write to. And so, holy shit, I mean, you could have a distributed blessing network of people just sending good vibes to each other through the quantum foam. I'm like, okay, for me, ultra priming, totally fucking worth it. If it works, if it's real, amazing. If it's not real, I still feel fucking great doing it. But the weirdest thing is that I think this is why people want to deny the power of microtubules, is because they don't want to believe that this kind of thing is true. Which would mean that like religions that talk about prayer and blessing and these kinds of things, that they actually might have been right. And I think for a scientist in an academic ivory tower institution, this is too much. Too much. It's too far. And it can't be accepted, no matter what. Even if they look ridiculous, which who cares if you look ridiculous? I look ridiculous telling you all this stuff. So I just say like, come over to the this I don't know if there's no side to come over to. I just feel I can definitely tell that some of my success in life has come from doing ultra priming. And I started doing ultra priming back in 2019. And I've done a lot of great work in the world. A
Mm.
lot in the public eye and some not all in the public eye. I've only become more public in the last 6 months on Twitter. So I've very much tried to keep my work in the vagus nerve very tight, knit, quiet. Because, again, remember how I got there is I had an astral projection. I was like, maybe I shouldn't go public with this just yet. But anyway,
Mhm.
I'm like, if honestly, if I don't talk about this, um, maybe it could help somebody. Honestly, if there's one person out there who's like a fucking genius and just is lost or whatever, is just like, there's no point to this world. If I can tell, there's people out there way smarter than me. But if this could unlock something in your mind and you're like, oh, I'm back, baby. The world could be fucking saved if
Mhm.
just one person out there could hear this and just go, oh, there's really something cool going on in the body, in biology, in the mind. These concepts of like psychic phenomenon there could be something to it. I don't know. I'm not prescriptive about it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So it's like, to sum it up, and you can tell me if this is accurate. It's
yeah, yeah.
really, it's a thinking framework in the sense of, looking at things as, does it expand or condense or uh, diminish consciousness?
Mm,
Right? And instead of thinking this is good or this is bad, and this is, you should do that or shouldn't do that, or this is establishment, this is the anti-establishment, or this is mainstream, this is not mainstream. It's
yeah.
does that action, which is what you're talking about, is really helping people, and kind of the energy that you bring is
Mm,
opening consciousness and doing things that expand consciousness and
yeah.
exploring different things. And I think kind of we touch on it in the middle is, rather than saying there is one established way
Mm.
of, this is the way it has to be, this is the way it has to be done, there, when we open ourselves up, we're able to gain a better way, or, the most effective way to get somewhere or achieve something.
Yeah, yeah, I think that is the case. I would also say that I look at things from a microtubule perspective too. I'm trying that on for size. That might be an optimal way to look at things. It could be suboptimal. I don't know. I mean, don't just blindly follow me into anything. I mean, fuck, man, I have no idea where I'm going. These things happen to me. I'm talking about them. I'm having an exceptionally great time doing it. Um, but in thinking about from a microtubules perspective, consciousness is the expansive force that microtubules are there to support. And so in increasing conscious moments through memory exercises and through better moments, more positive moments, of course, is that we can expand consciousness individually and expand that in the world. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think it's really, really important. And I think that if humans could potentially live forever, I mean, I think we haven't even begun to explore a world where consciousness is seen as a force that exists in human beings. I actually really do believe that it's obvious to some of us, but these aren't ideas pervasive in the general larger culture yet. But they will be.
Will be.
They will be. You'll see.
So we always end the Titans of Today podcast with, what is the next action or the one thing that somebody can do to improve their life? Would you say that someone should go do ultra priming right now? If they're watching this, watching it back, they should go do ultra priming for the next
Hell
20
yeah.
minutes. Take that time and go do it.
Hell yeah. Yeah. If you so I have a bias towards X, of course. I think if you're on X, that's the most important platform to be on in the world right now. So I've embedded ultra priming into the Grok AI,
Hmm.
XAI. So if you go to Grok and you type in Sterling's ultra priming video, it'll say Sterling's ultra priming video is a fantastic resource for blah, 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 blah. And then it'll give you the link right to it. And so you can play it right there. So if you want to watch it immediately, because I think anything that's consistent is key. I'm always on X. So I just use, if I'm kind of on the go, I ask Grok, give me the ultra priming video, and it's there. So Grok is programmed to be sort of my own personal public assistant for all of your benefit. So that's the best way to go and see it. But if you, yeah, check me out on Twitter or x.com/Sterling Cooley. That's my account. I post the ultra priming video basically as much as I can, like the raw original ultra priming video that you can go watch there. So yeah,
Perfect.
just search for it on Twitter. I've posted it. It's public. You can watch it. Go do it. It could legitimately change your life.
Awesome. I'm gonna drop a link of that in the chat and also to your Twitter as well. And it was awesome to have you on as a guest. I'm sure that there's a
Yeah, of
million things we can continue to unpack, and
course.
we will in the future. So we've
Of
only
course.
scratched the surface, but it was a pleasure to have you on the show.
Pleasure to be here, Jacob. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Talk again soon.
All right.
Cheers.